story time. So I touched on some subjects there in the last video, and I wanted to clarify some of the, what I was talking about in that video, and give you guys an idea how it came to be. So basically what it is, I took a little trip down south from where we are, and it was to a little small town in Tennessee called Dryersburg, Tennessee. Not a lot there, but there is one thing there, and that is the nation's biggest off-road suspension manufacturer, located right there in Dryersburg. Now, a lot of you may not know this, but that place is actually Rough Country Suspension. Now, myself, I'm a Rough Country dealer. I have no problems with Rough Country components whatsoever, and I'll sell their stuff just the same as I will anybody else's, and there's a reason for that. So basically what it all boils down to is Rough Country is owned by TSG, which is a global conglomerate. They have several under their portfolio, but they own other companies and their subsidiaries, same as they own Rough Country and their subsidiary companies. And if you do enough research, you come to the realization that a lot of other companies are using Rough Country suspension to get their components from and just rebranding them under that company's name. I know they're not going to tell you this, but if you've noticed a lot of similarities in other lifts, only it's like, well, this one has an RC on it and this one doesn't. There's probably a reason behind that. And that's the reason that is behind that, because, for example, Rough Country makes lift for custom offsets. It's just rebranded Rough Country Suspension. Summit Racing, in fact, their lifts that you get in their suspension components is just rebranded Rough Country Suspension. And the same thing goes for a lot of JX components, JC Whitney and other components as well. And that's the thing, is they're not going to tell you this because they want you to say, okay, well, we have many different brands to choose from and choices to make, but what it all boils down to is it's pretty much all the same. I'm not saying every company out there has affiliations with Rough Country, because there's a few that do not, but a lot do. And if you do your research, you'll realize that. That's why myself, I just go straight to Rough Country and I get my stuff there, or I resell their product for if a customer wants it, because I've had no issues with their products whatsoever. I know they got a bad rap there at one point in time before TSG got involved and upgraded their entire system and their entire line, but once they got involved, they really took Rough Country to another level of suspension design, and they had the funds to do that. So that's the reason why you've seen such an increase in some of the stuff that they're doing now. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you do have to modify a component here and there, but that's kind of the same way it is on every lift component that you buy and from every lift company, because guess what? Each and every manufactured frame, whether it be GM, Ford, even Toyota, there are minute differences in some brackets where differentials bolt on. There may be a little swell in one X section that's not in another. There may be a little wider, and that's because when they manufacture these frames, they manufacture them on a jig with specifications. Whether it is within this specification, they'll let it go for approval. That's why there's so many differences. That's why there's so much press out there saying, well, this didn't fit right, I had to modify my frame. Well, you're going to have to, because every frame is different. It's kind of like the fingerprint of a vehicle. You can sit here and say, if you can find two frames that have identical components and identical everything, that means it's probably made by the same person on the same day. So the next day it's not going to be the same, and that's just the truth of it, and that's just how things really happen, and that's why things are the way they are. I hope this has answered a few questions, but for now, let's get ready and get into this next video, because we got some really cool stuff coming.